The annual yacht auction was more than just a mere event. It was a spectacle of wealth, power, and unspoken social hierarchies that defined the upper echelons of society. Nestled along the pristine marina, the venue pulsed with an electric anticipation that only the world's most exclusive gatherings could generate. Polished marble floors reflected the glint of champagne glasses, while designer-clad attendees moved with a calculated grace that spoke volumes about their social standing. Where are you watching from today? Comment down below. The location was no ordinary convention center. This was the Marina Royale, a venue so exclusive that invitations were more coveted than most awards in the corporate world. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the marina, where multi-million-dollar vessels bobbed gently against their moorings, mere appetizers to the maritime marvels that would be auctioned inside. Every detail was a carefully orchestrated display of opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast soft, diffuse light over meticulously displayed yacht models, each one a testament to maritime engineering and obscene wealth. The models were not mere representations but works of art, intricate scale replicas that captured every minute detail of vessels worth more than most people's lifetime earnings. Wealthy industrialists, tech moguls, and celebrity elites mingled with an air of practiced nonchalance, their conversations a delicate dance of subtle boasts and carefully measured compliments. A whispered comment about a recent acquisition, a strategic glance that acknowledged a business rival, a laugh that was more performance than genuine mirth. These were the social currencies of this rarefied world. The auction house staff moved with military precision. Waiters in crisp white jackets balanced silver trays of champagne and canapes, their movements so smooth they seemed to float rather than walk. Security personnel blended into the background, their presence both reassuring and nearly invisible, a testament to the kind of discretion that money could buy. Global maritime experts stood near the yacht models, ready to provide intricate details about each vessel's specifications. These were not mere salespeople, but walking encyclopedias of nautical engineering, capable of discussing everything from hull design to navigation systems with the same passion that others might discuss fine art. Every corner of the room whispered of exclusivity. The invitation-only event was more than just a sale. It was a social proving ground where reputation was as valuable as the vessels being auctioned. Networking happened in hushed conversations. Business deals were initiated with a subtle glance. Careers could be made or destroyed in the span of a single interaction. The atmosphere crackled with unspoken rules. Here, appearance was everything. A wrong move, a misplaced comment, a slightly inappropriate laugh could mean social exile faster than a yacht could cut through ocean waves. The stakes were high, the judgment swift, and the competition fierce. Outside, the marina itself was a playground for the world's elite. Multi-million-dollar vessels lined the docks, each one a statement of wealth, of power, of individual achievement. Luxury cars dropped off attendees, Rolls-Royces, custom-designed Mercedes, limited edition sports cars that cost more than most people's homes. The global elite had gathered. Billionaire tech entrepreneurs stood shoulder to shoulder with old money aristocrats. Hollywood celebrities mingled with international business moguls. Investment bankers chatted with marine industry innovators. This was a gathering that transcended typical social boundaries, united by a single passion for maritime excellence and the thrill of high-stakes acquisition. As the guests continued to arrive, the room seemed to hold its breath, waiting, watching, anticipating the moment when the first paddle would rise and the first bid would break the tension that hung in the air like expensive cologne. Comment where you're watching from today, the narrator seemed to whisper between the lines. Because this story was about to unfold in a way no one could have predicted. Little did anyone know that this auction would become more than just a transaction of expensive vessels. It would become a stage for a drama of human character, of social dynamics, of the true meaning of wealth and success. The gleaming yachts stood as silent witnesses to a story about to unfold, a story that would challenge everything these elite attendees believed about status, about judgment, about the very nature of human worth. The auction was about to begin, and nothing would be the same after this moment. Maxwell Crawford was not a man who understood the concept of subtlety. From the moment he was born into a middle-class family in suburban Chicago, he had been driven by an insatiable desire to rise above his origins. Every decision, every interaction, was a carefully calculated move in what he saw as the ultimate game of social and financial advancement. He arrived at the yacht auction like a hurricane of wealth and ego, his entrance carefully choreographed to draw maximum attention. Dressed in a custom-tailored Brioni suit that likely cost more than most people's annual salary, he moved through the crowd with the confidence of a man who believed the world revolved around him. Each step was a performance, each gesture a statement of his perceived superiority. His backstory was the quintessential tech success narrative, a self-made billionaire who had risen from a modest background to become a titan of the Silicon Valley elite. Maxwell's company, a groundbreaking artificial intelligence startup, had made him hundreds of millions practically overnight. But money was never enough for him. He craved recognition, respect, and most of all, the ability to look down on others. The suit was a weapon. Italian silk, perfectly tailored to his athletic build, it was a second skin that screamed success. His Rolex glinted under the crystal chandeliers, not just a timepiece, but a statement of his ability to conquer time itself. Italian leather shoes clicked against the marble floor, each step a declaration of his arrival. His entourage, a carefully curated group of assistants and hangers-on, trailed behind him like a living, breathing status symbol. They were meticulously selected. Victor, his primary assistant, a thin man whose entire demeanor screamed of carefully cultivated obsequiousness. Sarah, his PR manager, whose perfectly coiffed appearance was a testament to her ability to manage images, and two junior executives who hung on his every word, hoping for a moment of professional proximity. They laughed at his jokes, nodded at his observations, and maintained the illusion of his absolute superiority. To the outside world, they were the perfect representation of corporate success, a well-oiled machine of ambition and achievement. But Maxwell's true power lay in his ability to read people. He saw the world as a series of transactions, of opportunities to be exploited. Every person was either a potential asset or an obstacle to be overcome. His AI company hadn't just been about technological innovation. It was about understanding human behavior, about predicting and manipulating social interactions. In stark contrast, Keanu Reeves entered the auction house with a quiet grace that seemed to belong to another world entirely. Where Maxwell demanded attention, Keanu seemed to almost blend into the background, despite being one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood. He wore simple clothes, a well-worn leather jacket that looked like it had traveled countless miles, faded jeans that spoke of comfort over fashion, and boots that seemed more suited to a motorcycle journey than a high-stakes yacht auction. No designer labels, no obvious displays of wealth, just clothing that seemed to be an extension of his genuine, unaffected personality. The difference was immediately apparent. Maxwell's arrival was a thunderclap of wealth and ego, while Keanu's presence was more like a gentle breeze, unassuming yet undeniably powerful. He moved through the crowd with a humility that spoke volumes about his character. No assistants surrounded him, no entourage marked his path. He was simply Keanu, a man who had achieved global fame, but never lost touch with his fundamental humanity. Those who recognized him did so with a quiet respect. A subtle nod here, a brief smile there. The true fans understood that Keanu was not a man who sought the spotlight, but someone who carried it naturally. His presence was a testament to the idea that true star power wasn't about making noise, but about genuine authenticity. Maxwell's eyes swept the room, calculating and critical. When his gaze landed on Keanu, something shifted in his expression, a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed disdain. Here was a man dressed so casually in a space designed for the elite. Maxwell's mind immediately began to categorize and judge. The contrast could not have been more pronounced. Maxwell Crawford, the embodiment of aggressive ambition and self-importance, and Keanu Reeves, a symbol of quiet integrity and genuine humanity. They moved through the same space, breathed the same air, but their worlds could not have been more different. Little did anyone know that this seemingly random intersection would soon become the catalyst for a moment that would challenge everyone's perceptions. The yacht auction was about to become more than just a transaction of expensive maritime vessels. It was about to become a stage for a lesson in humility, respect, and the true meaning of success. As Keanu browsed the yacht displays with a genuine interest that seemed to go beyond mere price tags, Maxwell continued to watch, his mind already working, his ego preparing for a confrontation that he did not yet fully understand was coming. The narrator's voice seemed to hang in the air, a whisper of anticipation. Something was about to happen, something that would change everything. The yacht auction's main hall was a carefully orchestrated display of maritime luxury, with gleaming vessel models positioned like precious artifacts in a museum of wealth. Polished wood, chrome detailing, and glass cases showcased the most exquisite watercraft money could buy. And in this temple of opulence, Maxwell Crawford's predatory gaze locked onto Keanu Reeves with a laser-like intensity. Maxwell leaned in close to his closest assistant, Victor, a thin man whose entire demeanor screamed of carefully cultivated obsequiousness. His words were a calculated whisper, designed to be just loud enough to be heard by those immediately surrounding him. "Would you look at that?" he muttered, his eyes never leaving Keanu. Some people clearly didn't get the dress code memo. The comment hung in the air like a poisoned dart. Victor chuckled, more out of obligation than genuine humor. The small group of sycophants surrounding Maxwell followed suit, their laughter a choreographed performance of social appeasement. They understood the unwritten rules of this world. Mock first, ask questions never. Keanu remained blissfully unaware of the judgment being cast his way. He moved from yacht to yacht with a genuine curiosity that seemed almost childlike in its sincerity. Where others saw price tags and status symbols, he appeared to see craftsmanship, engineering, the pure artistry of maritime design. His fingers traced the models with a reverence that spoke of true appreciation rather than mere acquisition. Maxwell's group continued their quiet derision. "Leather jacket at a yacht auction," Victor murmured, loud enough for nearby attendees to hear. "How quaint." The word was delivered with a razor's edge of condescension, a verbal sneer that was meant to cut and belittle. But Maxwell was just getting started. Years of success had refined his ability to pass judgment with surgical precision. He knew how to weaponize words, how to create social discomfort with nothing more than a well-placed comment and a carefully modulated tone of voice. To him, this auction was more than just a marketplace. It was a battlefield of social hierarchy, and he was a general preparing for war. "Some people," Maxwell continued, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that nonetheless carried with practiced precision, "seem to think simply showing up is enough, as if walking into this space grants them instant legitimacy." The words were a verbal velvet glove concealing an iron fist of pure contempt. The surrounding crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some nodded almost imperceptibly. Others exchanged knowing glances. This was the unspoken language of the elite, judgment delivered with a smile, exclusion masked as sophisticated observation. Maxwell was a master of this dialect, fluent in the grammar of social dismissal. Keanu, meanwhile, remained a study in composure. He continued his exploration of the yacht models, seemingly untouched by the whispers and sideways glances. There was a groundedness to him that transcended the superficial judgments being cast his way. Each yacht he examined was treated with the same respect, whether it was a multi-million-dollar masterpiece or a more modest craft. Victor leaned in again, sensing his boss's growing irritation. "Shall I have security discreetly monitor him?" The pause before him was laden with implication, a verbal eye roll that suggested Keanu was barely worth acknowledging as a full person. Maxwell's response was a barely perceptible shake of the head, not out of kindness, but out of a calculated understanding that making a scene would be beneath him. No, his method was far more subtle. Death by 1,000 paper cuts of social dismissal. The auction house continued its elegant dance. Waitstaff glided between groups with champagne, crystal glasses catching the light like miniature prisms. Potential buyers discussed specifications, examined detailed maritime blueprints, their conversations a soft backdrop to Maxwell's quiet campaign of social warfare. But something was brewing. The tension was palpable, an electrical charge waiting for the right moment to spark. Maxwell's judgment of Keanu was more than just a passing moment of aristocratic disdain. It was the first movement in a symphony of conflict that was about to reach a crescendo none of them could predict. The narrator's voice seemed to hang in the periphery, a whisper of anticipation. First impressions, after all, were rarely the whole story. And in this world of yacht auctions and carefully constructed social personas, appearances could be the most deceptive luxury of all. As the afternoon light filtered through the auction house windows, casting long shadows across polished floors, one thing became increasingly clear. This was going to be an auction unlike any other. The auction hall transformed as the preliminary activities gave way to the main event. Elegant chandeliers seemed to dim slightly, creating a spotlight effect on the central stage where pristine models of extraordinary vessels awaited their moment. The auctioneer, a distinguished gentleman with silver hair and a voice that could command millions with a single syllable, took his position behind a mahogany podium that looked more like a judicial bench than a simple lectern. Maxwell Crawford positioned himself with calculated precision. He selected a spot that was not just strategic for bidding, but also allowed him to maintain a clear line of sight to Keanu Reeves. It was a move that spoke volumes about his competitive nature. He wanted to be close enough to intimidate, yet maintain the veneer of casual sophistication that defined these high-stakes gatherings. The first few lots passed with a predictable rhythm. Multi-million-dollar vessels changed hands with the same casual ease that most people might use to purchase a cup of coffee. Paddles rose and fell, fortunes shifted, and the collective wealth in the room could have funded small countries. Yet for Maxwell, these initial rounds were merely a warm-up, a prelude to the main performance he was anticipating. His eyes kept darting between the auctioneer and Keanu, who remained positioned near the back of the room. Keanu's posture was relaxed, almost scholarly, as if he were studying the vessels more as works of art than potential purchases. Where others saw price tags, he seemed to see stories, craftsmanship, the human ingenuity behind each maritime creation. Maxwell leaned in close to Victor, his ever-present assistant, his voice a carefully modulated whisper. "See how he doesn't even seem serious?" The words dripped with calculated disdain. Some people come to these events just to play tourist. The implication was clear. Keanu was an intruder, someone who didn't belong in this rarefied space of wealth and exclusivity. The auction continued its mesmerizing dance. Each vessel told a story, of engineering marvel, of luxury beyond imagination. There were sleek racing yachts that looked like they could slice through ocean waves with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel, massive floating palaces that redefined the very concept of maritime luxury, classic wooden vessels that spoke of a bygone era of craftsmanship. But one yacht stood out. It was a masterpiece of maritime engineering, a 150-foot vessel that seemed to embody perfection. Gleaming white hull, cutting-edge technology seamlessly blended with timeless design, the kind of boat that wasn't just a means of transportation, but a statement of ultimate achievement. Maxwell had been eyeing this particular vessel for months. It wasn't just a purchase for him, it was a trophy, a symbol of his ultimate success. As the auctioneer began to describe this crown jewel of the auction, Maxwell's entire demeanor changed. Gone was the casual arrogance, replaced by a laser-focused intensity. This was a predator preparing to claim his prize. His fingers flexed almost imperceptibly, the platinum and diamond cufflinks catching the light, another subtle display of his wealth. Keanu, meanwhile, showed an unexpected interest. He moved slightly closer to the stage, his attention fully engaged. It wasn't the desperate lean of someone hoping to make an impossible purchase, but the genuine curiosity of someone who appreciated true craftsmanship. Maxwell noticed. Of course, he noticed. It was as if Keanu's mere glance was a challenge to his predetermined narrative. How could this casually dressed man, who Maxwell had already mentally dismissed, show genuine interest in his intended prize? The tension in the room grew thick enough to cut with a knife. Other bidders seemed to sense something brewing, a confrontation that went beyond the mere act of purchasing a yacht. This was becoming personal. The auctioneer's voice rose and fell like a musical instrument, describing the vessel's specifications. "A true marvel of modern maritime engineering," he proclaimed, "capable of oceanic crossings with the comfort of a five-star hotel and the performance of a racing vessel." Maxwell's paddle was already half raised, his body language screaming of ownership before the bidding had truly begun. This yacht was more than a purchase. It was a statement, a declaration of his place in the world. No one, especially not some casual interloper, was going to stand in his way. The narrator's voice seemed to hover just at the edge of perception. Something was about to happen. A confrontation was brewing, not just about a yacht, but about something far more fundamental. About perception, about assumptions, about the very nature of value and worth. The first bid was about to be placed, and nothing would be the same after this moment. The auction hall seemed to contract, the vast space suddenly feeling intimate and charged with electricity. Maxwell Crawford positioned himself with surgical precision, his entire body language a weapon of social intimidation. The yacht, a pristine white marvel of maritime engineering, stood as the silent centerpiece of an unfolding drama that was about to become far more than a simple financial transaction. When Keanu showed genuine interest in the vessel, Maxwell saw his opportunity. It wasn't about the yacht anymore. It was about territory, about establishing a pecking order in this carefully curated world of wealth and privilege. He leaned slightly, deliberately positioning himself closer to Keanu, his voice pitched to carry just far enough to be heard by those immediately surrounding them. "Window shopping can be fascinating," Maxwell said, his words dripping with a veneer of polite conversation that barely concealed their razor-sharp intent. "Though I suppose some people find more enjoyment in looking than actually purchasing." The subtle emphasis on "some people" was a verbal sledgehammer designed to cut and dismiss. His entourage, a carefully assembled group of sycophants and business associates, shifted uncomfortably. They recognized the tone, the setup. Maxwell was about to perform one of his infamous social takedowns, a public dismantling that had become something of a legendary tactic in certain circles. Keanu remained remarkably composed. Where another might have bristled, responded with anger or defensiveness, he simply continued to examine the yacht's specifications. His calm was not weakness. It was a quiet strength that seemed to radiate from within, completely impervious to Maxwell's attempted provocation. The auctioneer continued his methodical description, seemingly oblivious to the brewing social storm. "A vessel that represents the pinnacle of maritime engineering," he intoned, his voice a smooth counterpoint to the rising tension. "Fully equipped with state-of-the-art navigation systems, custom interior design, and capabilities for both long-range oceanic journeys and coastal exploration." Maxwell's voice cut through the professional narration like a knife. "Some people," he said, loud enough for nearby bidders to hear, "should really know their place." The comment was a deliberate public humiliation, an attempt to create a social force field that would push Keanu to the margins of this exclusive gathering. The surrounding crowd began to take notice. Heads turned. Conversations dropped to whispers. In this world, social warfare was as precise and devastating as any military strategy. Maxwell was executing a perfect attack, using words as his primary weapon. "I'm sure window shopping must be entertaining," Maxwell continued, his voice a masterclass in passive-aggressive dismissal. "Gives one a chance to see how the other half lives." The implication was clear. Keanu was not part of the other half. He was something less, an outsider, an interloper. But something was happening that Maxwell had not anticipated. The surrounding crowd was not responding with the usual mixture of uncomfortable laughter and tacit agreement. Something in Keanu's demeanor, his absolute calm, his lack of visible reaction, was creating a different dynamic. Those closest to the interaction began to shift uncomfortably. What had started as a potential moment of social humiliation was transforming into something else. Maxwell's attack was beginning to reflect more on him than on his intended target. The yacht remained on its display, a gleaming white testament to human engineering, seemingly indifferent to the human drama unfolding around it. Its pristine lines and perfect proportions stood in stark contrast to the ugly social maneuvering happening in its presence. Maxwell pressed forward, sensing he needed to escalate. "I'm sure a gentleman such as yourself understands the importance of knowing one's limitations." The word limitations was delivered with surgical precision, a verbal scalpel designed to cut to the core of social standing. What Maxwell did not know, what he could not have anticipated, was that he was about to step into a moment that would completely upend his carefully constructed world. The yacht auction was about to become far more than a simple financial transaction. It was becoming a stage for a profound lesson in humility, in the true nature of worth and value. The narrator's voice seemed to hang in the periphery, a whisper of anticipation. First impressions, social assumptions, the carefully constructed hierarchies of wealth and status, all of these were about to be challenged in ways no one could have predicted. The bidding was about to begin, and nothing would be the same after this moment. The auction hall hung suspended in a moment of electric anticipation. Maxwell's calculated insult hung in the air like a poisonous mist, his expectation of social dominance absolute and unquestioned. But moments of true transformation often arrive without warning, and this would be one such moment. An auction house employee approached, clipboard in hand, a professional smile carefully arranged. "Mr. Reeves," she called out, her voice clear and respectful. "Would you like me to prepare the preliminary documentation for the vessel you're interested in?" The effect was instantaneous. A ripple of recognition swept through the crowd like a sudden wave, transforming the social landscape in the span of a single heartbeat. Heads turned, whispers erupted, and Maxwell Crawford's carefully constructed moment of social superiority began to crumble faster than a sandcastle beneath an incoming tide. Keanu looked up, offering a gentle smile to the employee. "Thank you," he replied, his voice calm and measured. But the damage was already done. The room had shifted. Those who moments ago might have silently endorsed Maxwell's subtle bullying now looked at him with a mixture of shock and growing disapproval. The crowd's reaction was a masterclass in social dynamics. Wealthy individuals who moments before had been content to observe now began to subtly distance themselves from Maxwell. His social currency was rapidly deflating, and everyone could see it happening in real time. Maxwell's face went through a series of rapid transformations. First confusion, then dawning horror, then a desperate attempt to recover his composure. The man who had been so confident in his ability to publicly humiliate someone now found himself on the wrong side of a very public moment. Keanu Reeves, Hollywood megastar. Beloved actor known not just for his films, but for his legendary kindness, his philanthropic work, his genuine humanity. The man Maxwell had just attempted to publicly embarrass was not some random attendee, but a global icon who represented something far more valuable than mere financial wealth. The auction house employee continued, seemingly oblivious to the social earthquake she had just triggered. "We've prepared the preliminary paperwork for the vessel you expressed interest in, Mr. Reeves. Would you like to review the specifications?" Whispers began to circulate. Those who hadn't immediately recognized Keanu were now being filled in by their neighbors. Stories of his generosity, his kindness, his consistent rejection of Hollywood's typical ego-driven narrative were shared in hushed, reverent tones. Maxwell's entourage, the group of sycophants and business associates who had moments ago laughed at his subtle barbs, now stood in uncomfortable silence. Victor, his closest assistant, looked like he wanted to disappear into the marble floor. The social dynamics had shifted completely, and they were now witnessing a public unraveling. The narrator's voice seemed to hover just at the edge of perception. This was more than just a moment of recognition. This was a profound lesson in the true nature of worth, of character, of what really matters in a world often obsessed with superficial markers of success. Keanu, for his part, remained unchanged. He didn't grandstand. He didn't call attention to himself. He simply continued to examine the yacht with the same genuine curiosity he had displayed from the beginning. If anything, the revelation seemed to matter less to him than to anyone else in the room. The auctioneer, a consummate professional, managed to maintain his composure, but even he seemed subtly affected by the dramatic turn of events. The energy in the room had transformed from one of calculated social maneuvering to something more nuanced, more human. Maxwell's earlier bravado had evaporated. The man who had been so confident in his ability to publicly dismiss and humiliate now stood as a study in social discomfort. His carefully tailored suit suddenly seemed less impressive, his expensive watch less meaningful. Around him, the attitudes had shifted dramatically. Those who might have previously nodded along with his subtle put-downs now looked at him with a mixture of disapproval and something close to pity. In attempting to establish his social superiority, Maxwell had instead revealed something far less flattering about himself. Keanu continued to discuss the yacht with the auction house employee, his conversation filled with genuine interest in the vessel's engineering, its design, its potential. He wasn't performing. He wasn't making a statement. He was simply being himself, a quality that seemed to speak volumes in this moment of high-stakes social drama. The yacht remained on display, a gleaming white testament to human achievement. But now, it seemed to represent something more than just a maritime marvel. It had become a stage for a profound human moment, a revelation of true character that went far beyond mere financial transactions. The narrator's voice whispered one final observation. In a world obsessed with status, with wealth, with the appearance of success, true worth often reveals itself in the most unexpected moments. And those moments can change everything. The atmosphere in the auction hall had transformed. What moments ago had been a carefully choreographed dance of wealth and social posturing was now a battlefield of unexpected proportions. The pristine white yacht, a marvel of maritime engineering, stood as the ultimate prize, its gleaming hull reflecting the tension that now electrified the room. The auctioneer, a consummate professional who had witnessed countless high-stakes transactions, sensed the shift in dynamics. His voice, previously a smooth narration of specifications, now carried an almost theatrical quality. "We'll start the bidding at 20 million, he announced, his eyes scanning the room with the practiced ease of someone who had orchestrated countless multi-million-dollar exchanges. Maxwell Crawford's hand shot up instantly. 25 million. His movement was aggressive, a physical manifestation of his desperate need to save face after the public humiliation he had just endured. This was no longer just about purchasing a yacht. This was about redemption, about proving his worth in front of a room full of witnesses who now viewed him with a mixture of suspicion and barely concealed judgment. Keanu raised his paddle. 26 million. His movement was calm, almost casual, a stark contrast to Maxwell's frantically competitive gesture. The crowd held its collective breath. What had begun as a routine auction had transformed into a gladiatorial contest of wills. Maxwell's previous attempts to dismiss Keanu now seemed like a catastrophic miscalculation. Each bid was more than a financial transaction. It was a statement, a response to the earlier public confrontation. 30 million. Maxwell's bid came quickly, his face flushed with a combination of anger and desperation. The yacht had become a symbol of something far greater than its maritime capabilities. This was about pride, about social standing, about proving a point. Keanu responded. 31 million. His calm was unnerving. Where Maxwell was all sharp edges and visible tension, Keanu remained a study in composed interest. He wasn't trying to win a battle. He was simply participating, his motivations a mystery to everyone in the room. The auctioneer's voice rose and fell like a musical instrument. 31 million. Do I hear 32? Maxwell's assistants exchanged nervous glances. This was not going according to any script they knew. Victor, his closest aide, leaned in and whispered something. A strategy, a suggestion, a moment of potential retreat. But Maxwell was beyond listening. 40 million. The bid came out like a verbal assault, a financial punch meant to knock Keanu out of the competition. His earlier humiliation was driving him now, logic giving way to pure competitive fury. Keanu's response was immediate. 41 million. The room was mesmerized. What had started as a simple yacht auction had become performance art, a live demonstration of character under pressure. Maxwell's wealth, once a weapon of social dominance, now seemed almost desperate. Keanu's calm was a counterpoint, a different kind of strength that spoke volumes without saying a word. 50 million. Maxwell was all in, his entire demeanor screaming of a man who could not, would not, be defeated. His earlier social miscalculation had transformed into a financial battle, a last-ditch effort to reassert his perceived superiority. The auctioneer's excitement was barely contained. $50 million. Do I hear 51? Keanu raised his paddle. 51 million. The crowd was transfixed. This was no longer about a yacht. This was about something deeper, more fundamental, a test of character, a moment of profound social reckoning. Maxwell's world was unraveling. Each bid was a reminder of his earlier mistake, each moment bringing him closer to a very public defeat. His assistants looked increasingly uncomfortable. The socialites and wealthy attendees who might have once supported him now watched with a mixture of fascination and growing disapproval. 60 million, Maxwell's final desperate attempt to claim victory. The narrator's voice seemed to hover just at the edge of perception. Some battles are won not with money, but with something far more valuable: character, integrity, dignity. Keanu's response came calm and clear: 61 million. The auction hall fell into a profound silence. The gleaming white yacht stood as a witness to a moment that was about to change everything. The final hammer fell: $61 million. The room hung suspended in a moment of collective anticipation, the gleaming white yacht now belonging to Keanu Reeves. Maxwell Crawford stood frozen, his carefully constructed world reduced to a public moment of complete and total defeat. The auctioneer's voice cut through the silence. "Congratulations to the winning bidder," he announced, his professional demeanor barely concealing the dramatic tension that had just unfolded. Heads turned, whispers erupted, and the entire room seemed to lean forward in collective curiosity. A young reporter from a marine lifestyle magazine approached Keanu, microphone extended. "Mr. Reeves," she asked, her voice a mixture of professional curiosity and barely contained excitement, "what are your plans for this extraordinary vessel?" The room fell absolutely silent. Maxwell and his entourage watched, their previous bravado completely deflated. They had expected a moment of personal triumph, a display of wealth and status. Instead, they were about to witness something entirely unexpected. Keanu's response was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the auction hall. "It's for the children," he said simply. "We're going to use it to create experiences for kids who might never have the chance to see the ocean, to experience the joy of sailing." The explanation unfolded slowly, revealing a depth that nobody, least of all Maxwell, had anticipated. Keanu explained that the yacht would be part of a special program for terminally ill children, a charitable initiative that would provide maritime experiences to kids facing unimaginable challenges. Each voyage would be a chance for these children to create memories, to experience joy, to feel the freedom of the open water. Maxwell's face went through a remarkable transformation. What had begun as a moment of competitive fury, of social one-upmanship, was now revealed to be something profoundly different. The yacht was not a trophy. It was not a status symbol. It was a gift, a beacon of hope for children who needed it most. The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral. Whispers of admiration replaced the earlier tension. People who moments ago had been caught up in the drama of the bidding war now looked at Keanu with a mixture of respect and genuine emotion. "We've partnered with several children's hospitals," Keanu continued, his voice calm and matter-of-fact. "Kids who are fighting serious illnesses, who spend most of their time in treatment rooms and hospital beds, they'll get a chance to experience something magical, a day on the ocean, a moment of pure joy." Victor, Maxwell's assistant, leaned in and whispered something. Maxwell's composure was completely shattered. The man who had been so confident in his ability to humiliate, to demonstrate social superiority, now stood as a witness to a moment of genuine human kindness. The details began to emerge. The yacht would be fully equipped to accommodate children with various medical needs. Specially trained medical staff would be on board. Every detail had been considered, not as a display of wealth, but as an expression of pure compassion. "Some of these kids," Keanu explained, "may not have many chances left to experience true joy. This yacht is about giving them a day, just one day, where they can forget about their challenges, where they can feel the wind, see the ocean, experience something magical." The room was transforming. What had begun as a high-stakes auction had become something else entirely, a testament to the true meaning of wealth, of success, of human connection. Maxwell's world of carefully constructed social hierarchies was crumbling around him. The wealth he had used as a weapon, the status he had tried to leverage, all of it seemed small and insignificant in the face of this simple act of kindness. Reporters were furiously taking notes. Cameras were capturing every moment. But Keanu seemed uninterested in the attention. He spoke with the same calm, genuine approach he had maintained throughout the entire auction. This wasn't a performance. This was simply who he was. The yacht, that gleaming white marvel of maritime engineering, was no longer just a vessel. It had become a symbol of something far more profound, a beacon of hope, a promise of joy for children who needed it most. The narrator's voice seemed to hover just at the edge of perception. Some victories cannot be measured in dollars. Some moments of true wealth transcend any financial transaction. Maxwell Crawford stood in stunned silence. The man who had tried to use wealth as a weapon of social destruction had just witnessed its most powerful potential, as a tool of pure, unbridled compassion. The aftermath of Keanu's revelation spread through the auction hall like a shockwave. Maxwell Crawford stood at the epicenter of a social earthquake that was rapidly destroying everything he had built. The crowd's collective attitude had transformed from polite detachment to something far more pointed, a mixture of disappointment, judgment, and open disapproval. Those who moments ago might have nodded along with Maxwell's subtle put-downs now looked at him with barely concealed contempt. Networking opportunities began to evaporate. Potential business contacts found sudden, urgent reasons to move away. The social currency Maxwell had spent years accumulating was being stripped away with surgical precision. Whispers became conversations. The story of his earlier attempt to publicly embarrass Keanu spread like wildfire. Each retelling seemed to add another layer of depth to Maxwell's moment of spectacular failure. He had not just been rude, he had been cruel, and worse, he had been wrong. Victor, his closest assistant, looked like he wanted to disappear. The entourage that had once laughed at Maxwell's every joke now maintained a studied distance. In the world of high-stakes social interactions, there were few sins more unforgivable than being exposed as both mean-spirited and fundamentally mistaken. The marine industry journalists were having a field day. Cameras captured every nuanced moment of Maxwell's discomfort. Social media was already ablaze with the story, a tale of hubris, of a wealthy businessman humbled by an act of pure compassion. The narrative was writing itself, and Maxwell was the unwilling protagonist of a story that would define him for years to come. "Did you hear?" one socialite whispered to another, just loud enough for Maxwell to hear. "He was going to buy the yacht just to show off. And Keanu, he's buying it to help terminally ill children." The words were a verbal dagger, precise and devastating. Maxwell's attempts to recover were painful to watch. He tried to approach some of his usual business contacts, only to find conversations suddenly and mysteriously cutting short. Phones were mysteriously busy. Appointments suddenly became impossible to schedule. The social mechanism of exclusion was working with ruthless efficiency. The auction house staff moved with a professional detachment that somehow felt more cutting than open criticism. Polite smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Conversations that were technically courteous but laden with unspoken judgment. Maxwell was being systematically isolated, his social standing dismantled with clinical precision. Keanu, meanwhile, remained a study in gracious composure. He spoke with the auction staff, with journalists, with other attendees, always with the same genuine kindness that had defined his entire interaction. He wasn't performing. This was simply who he was. The yacht, that gleaming white marvel that had been the center of such drama, now stood as a symbol of something far greater than a simple maritime vessel. It was a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of genuine human compassion. Maxwell's world was crumbling. His wealth, his carefully constructed persona, his social standing, all of it was being revealed as nothing more than a thin veneer. The man who had built his entire identity on the ability to look down on others was now experiencing the most public of reckonings. Industry contacts began to quietly distance themselves. Business deals that had seemed certain now became uncertain. The ripple effect of his moment of cruelty was spreading far beyond the auction hall. In the interconnected world of high-stakes business, reputation was everything, and Maxwell's had just been irrevocably damaged. "It's not just about the yacht," one business associate was overheard saying. "It's about who we are as people." The words were a damning indictment of everything Maxwell had represented. The photographers continued to capture every moment of his discomfort. Every subtle shift of his stance, every failed attempt to regain his composure, became potential headline material. The public humiliation was complete, and it was total. Keanu moved through the crowd with the same genuine approach he had maintained throughout the entire event. He wasn't reveling in Maxwell's downfall. He wasn't making a spectacle. He was simply being himself, a quality that seemed to shine even brighter in contrast to Maxwell's desperate attempts at damage control. The narrator's voice seemed to hover just at the edge of perception. Some lessons are learned publicly. Some moments of truth are revealed in the most unexpected ways. And sometimes, the greatest wealth is not measured in dollars, but in genuine human kindness. Maxwell Crawford had entered the auction as a man who believed he could define worth through wealth and status. He was leaving as a cautionary tale, a living example of how quickly social standing can crumble when true character is revealed. The auction hall had mostly emptied, the gleaming vessels and polished surfaces now quiet after the day's dramatic events. Maxwell Crawford stood alone, a man stripped of his previous bravado, looking smaller and more vulnerable than he ever had before. The weight of his earlier actions hung around him like a physical burden. Keanu was preparing to leave, speaking quietly with the auction staff about the logistics of the yacht donation. Maxwell approached, his usual confident stride reduced to an uncertain shuffle. The distance between them seemed to stretch beyond mere physical space. It was a chasm of character, of fundamental human understanding. "Mr. Reeves," Maxwell began, his voice lacking its previous sharp edge. Gone was the man who had tried to publicly humiliate. What remained was something far more raw, a human being confronting his own worst qualities. Keanu turned, his gaze neither accusatory nor triumphant, just present, waiting. Maxwell's prepared speech, if he had one, seemed to evaporate. "I was wrong," he said simply. The words hung in the air, devoid of the usual qualifications or justifications that might have once accompanied such a statement. No but, no attempt to soften the admission, just a pure, unvarnished acknowledgement of his mistake. The narrator's voice seemed to whisper of the complexity of human nature, how moments of true humility can emerge from the most unexpected places. Maxwell Crawford, a man who had built an empire on aggressive self-promotion, was learning the most difficult lesson of all. "I judged you," Maxwell continued, "without knowing anything about you, about who you are, about what you do." His voice cracked slightly, not for dramatic effect, but with genuine emotion. "The children's program, I had no idea." Keanu listened, not with superiority, not with judgment, simply with the kind of compassionate attention that had defined his entire approach to the day's events. To everyone's surprise, Keanu extended an unexpected invitation. "Would you like to see the yacht in action?" he asked. "Come visit the program, see what it's really about." It was more than an invitation. It was an opportunity, a chance for Maxwell to see beyond the world he had constructed, a world of surfaces and status, of wealth measured only in monetary terms. The auction house staff watched, barely breathing. This was more than a personal interaction. It was a moment of potential transformation. Maxwell's initial response was confusion. He had prepared himself for rejection, for a public takedown that would match his earlier behavior. Instead, he was being offered a path to understanding. "The children's sailing program," Keanu explained, "isn't just about a day on the water. It's about hope, about giving kids facing incredible challenges a moment of pure joy." His words were simple, devoid of any performative quality, just a genuine sharing of purpose. Something shifted in Maxwell. The man who had entered the auction as a symbol of ruthless ambition was being offered a glimpse of a different kind of success, a success measured not in dollars, but in moments of human connection. The narrator's voice hovered at the edges of perception. Redemption, it seemed to suggest, is not about grand gestures. It's about the willingness to truly see, to truly listen. Maxwell's assistants watched from a distance, uncertain. Victor, his closest aide, looked like he was witnessing something he had never expected to see. His boss, the man who had built an empire on aggressive self-promotion, being offered a path to genuine understanding. "I'd like that," Maxwell said finally. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of a profound moment of personal transformation. The yacht, that gleaming white vessel that had been the center of such drama, now represented something entirely different. No longer a trophy of wealth, it had become a bridge, a connection between two seemingly different worlds. As they discussed the details of the visit, the remaining staff and few lingering attendees watched in stunned silence. This was not the ending anyone had expected when the day began. This was something far more nuanced, far more human. The narrator's voice seemed to suggest that true wealth is not about what you can acquire, it's about what you can understand, what you can learn, what you can give. Maxwell Crawford had entered the auction as a man defined by his wealth and status. He was leaving with something far more valuable, a chance at genuine human connection. The children's sailing program was nothing like Maxwell Crawford had imagined. Where he had expected a simple charitable exercise, he found a world of pure, unbridled joy that would fundamentally challenge everything he thought he understood about success, wealth, and human potential. The day began early. Maxwell arrived at the Maritime Center, his usual designer attire replaced by more practical clothing, a concession to the environment, but also a subtle symbol of his willingness to be present, to truly understand. The facility was a marvel of adaptive design, with ramps, specialized equipment, and an infrastructure that spoke of careful, considerate planning. Children with various medical challenges moved about the facility with a spirit that defied any notion of limitation. Some in wheelchairs, some with visible medical equipment, but all with a light in their eyes that seemed to burn brighter than any success Maxwell had ever achieved in his business career. Keanu moved among the children with an ease that was both natural and profound. He wasn't a celebrity performing charity. He was simply present, engaged, genuinely connected to each child he interacted with. Maxwell watched, fascinated by an approach to human interaction that was completely foreign to his previous worldview. One child in particular caught Maxwell's attention, a young girl named Emily, connected to medical equipment but wearing a sailing cap that seemed to be her most prized possession. She was preparing to go out on the yacht, her excitement palpable despite the challenges she faced. "This is my dream day," Emily told Maxwell, her words carrying a weight that no business deal had ever approached. "I've always wanted to feel the wind, to be on the water." The yacht, the very vessel that had been the center of such drama at the auction, was now transformed. It wasn't a status symbol. It wasn't a trophy. It was a vessel of hope, of dreams, of pure human potential. Maxwell found himself helping with preparations, his previous reluctance replaced by a genuine desire to understand. He watched as specialized equipment was carefully prepared, as medical staff worked alongside sailing instructors to ensure every child's safety and comfort. The moment the yacht left the dock was something Maxwell would never forget. The children's faces, transformed by pure, unbridled joy. The way the wind caught their hair, the sounds of laughter that seemed to defy any notion of limitation. These were children facing incredible challenges, yet in this moment, they were nothing but pure, unfiltered happiness. Emily approached Maxwell during a quiet moment. "My doctor says I might not have many more chances like this," she said, her words matter of fact, devoid of self-pity. "But today I'm a sailor. Today I'm free." Something fundamental shifted in Maxwell. The man who had built an empire on aggressive competition, on seeing the world as a series of transactions to be won, was experiencing a profound redefinition of value. By the end of the day, Maxwell's checkbook was out, but this was different from any previous charitable donation. This wasn't about tax breaks or social positioning. This was a genuine commitment, a desire to create more moments of joy, more opportunities for children who faced incredible challenges. "I want to do more," he told Keanu, the words coming from a place of genuine emotion, not just money. "I want to be involved, to understand." The transformation was visceral. Maxwell Crawford, the man who had entered the auction as a symbol of ruthless ambition, was becoming something else entirely, a witness to a different kind of success, a different kind of wealth. Keanu's response was characteristic in its simplicity. "It's not about what you give," he said. "It's about how you see people, really see them." The narrator's voice seemed to hover at the edges of perception. True change is not about grand gestures. It's about moments of genuine connection, about learning to see beyond the surfaces we construct. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the marina, Maxwell looked different. Gone was the aggressive businessman. In his place was someone who had discovered something far more valuable than any financial success, the true meaning of human connection. The yacht rocked gently against its moorings, a silent witness to a day that had changed everything. What had begun as a moment of public humiliation at an auction had transformed into a journey of profound, personal discovery. Maxwell Crawford had entered this world believing wealth was something you could count. He was leaving understanding that the most valuable things cannot be measured in dollars. They can only be experienced in moments of pure, unfiltered human joy. Months after the yacht auction that had changed everything, Maxwell Crawford was a different man. The sleek office that had once been a temple to his ego was now transformed. Photos of the children's sailing program adorned the walls, replacing the endless awards and financial charts that had previously defined the space. His company underwent a radical transformation. What was once a purely profit-driven tech enterprise now dedicated significant resources to programs supporting children with medical challenges. Maxwell had discovered something far more valuable than technological innovation: the power of genuine human connection. The story of the yacht auction had become more than just a moment of personal revelation. It had spread, capturing the imagination of people around the world. Social media buzzed with the tale of a wealthy businessman humbled by an act of extraordinary kindness. But more importantly, it had become a catalyst for conversation about what truly matters. Keanu Reeves continued his quiet work, largely unchanged by the publicity. For him, this was not about creating a narrative or seeking recognition. It was simply about doing what he believed was right, a philosophy that had defined his entire career. The yacht, that gleaming white vessel that had been the centerpiece of such drama, continued its mission. Every week, children facing incredible medical challenges would experience moments of pure joy, of freedom, of possibility. Each voyage was a testament to the power of compassion, a floating sanctuary of hope. Maxwell's transformation was not just superficial. He had begun to speak at conferences, not about technological innovation, but about the true meaning of success. His talks were raw, honest, vulnerable, a far cry from the aggressive presentations he had once delivered. Success isn't about what you can acquire, he would tell audiences. It's about what you can give. It's about seeing the humanity in others, especially those who might seem most different from you. The children's sailing program expanded. What had begun as a local initiative now received support from corporations, individuals, and community groups inspired by the story. Maxwell's initial donation had become a movement, a collective effort to create moments of joy for children facing incredible challenges. Emily, the young girl who had first touched Maxwell's heart, became a symbol of the program's impact. Her story inspired others, a beacon of hope that demonstrated the power of human resilience and compassion. The narrator's voice seemed to whisper of the ripple effect of kindness, how a single moment of genuine human connection can transform lives, can change perspectives, can create possibilities that seemed impossible before. Keanu remained true to himself, continuing his work, supporting various charitable causes, living with the same quiet integrity that had defined his entire career. He wasn't interested in the acclaim, in the recognition. For him, it was always about the people, about creating moments of genuine human connection. The yacht auction had become more than just a moment in time. It was a parable, a story that would be shared and remembered, a reminder that true wealth is not measured in dollars, but in moments of compassion, in the ability to see and support others. Maxwell's journey was a testament to the possibility of personal transformation. The man who had once defined himself by his ability to look down on others had become a champion of compassion, of understanding, of true human potential. Comment where you're watching from today. The narrator seemed to invite the audience. Share a moment when someone's kindness changed your perspective, when you saw beyond the surfaces, beyond the judgments, to the humanity that connects us all. The story was an invitation, a call to look beyond the surfaces we construct, to understand that wealth is not about what we can acquire, but about what we can give. That success is not measured by financial statements, but by the lives we touch, the moments of joy we create. As the sun set on another day of the children's sailing program, the yacht rocked gently against its moorings, a silent witness to a transformation that had begun with a single moment of unexpected compassion. The narrator's final words hung in the air, a gentle challenge to all who were listening. True character is revealed not in moments of triumph, but in moments of genuine human connection, in the ability to see beyond our own limitations, to understand, to support, to love. And sometimes that journey begins with the most unexpected of encounters.